Of course, we've added on to it over the years since its inception, and Franklin Roosevelt wouldn't recognize it now. But it is what it is, and that's the promise. But it is severely in trouble. Medicare is already in deficit spending. That's a matter of record. And if you continue deficit spending, as you said, it goes against all common sense financial principles. It won't work. It goes away. So we have to take it seriously. We can't have politicians out there saying, if you even want to look at protecting Social Security and making something that works even better for the younger generation coming up, you're taking Social Security away and Medicare away from the most needy and the seniors. If we keep doing that, we will never achieve the success that assures not only the promises kept for me and for others who are on Social Security, but there won't be anything of certain for you or my 1-year-old grandchild or my 6-year-old grandchild or my 5-year-old grandchild, or you name it. So we have to deal with it. So the approach is, number one, secure for the present. Stop the hemorrhaging. Stop taking money from the trust fund. Restore full payment for the trust fund. Put it in a lockbox, a bill that I introduced. To put a lockbox and say Social Security and Medicare can only be used for Social Security or Medicare purposes, nothing else. Secondly, find a system that will be more of a choice system with a Social Security still as an option, but other options that will be qualified for people like yourself to make a decision about, whether it's a 401k type plan that over the long haul works. Short time burps take place at times, but over the long haul it works, or some other mechanism to make sure that you understand, number one, your retirement is yours, and so you better plan for it. Secondly, there are people and agencies that will help you, and there are certain minimum requirements that a government ought to expect, that you don't just spend it on frivolous things, but it goes exactly to where it's supposed to go, and that's taking care of you in your retirement years. We can do that. I think there are people of goodwill on both sides of the aisle, if given the opportunity, that could come up with that change and still protect Social Security, keep the promise for those of us on or soon to be on.
We have a question over here with the gentleman in gray.
Back to the military for a moment. I'm a Navy veteran, and I was serving when women were introduced into shipboard life. And what I saw was, in many cases, there was a reduction in the requirements for various performance. For example, during training, typically the requirement was for 2 sailors to be able to manhandle a Stokes litter up a ladder, which to non-seamen is pull a stretcher upstairs. Virtually no women could complete that task. Therefore, that requirement was dropped, and it was changed to 4 sailors to manhandle, or woman handle, I suppose, a stretcher, a Stokes litter upstairs. This means, of course, if you come down to the exigencies of naval combat, that people will die. And militaries and navies have to be trained for combat. Fast forward to today, similar situation where we're even thinking about integrating women into special forces, land combat units, frontline stuff. And what I've been hearing in the press is that the chairman of the JCS and other major military officials are saying, we will have to relook at the requirements if we find out that women aren't adequately represented in those forces. Now, I realize that more than half your constituents are women, but frankly, my training in the military at its heart is about duty, honor, country. It's not about self. And frankly, the individuals that are involved here are looking for promotion, and that's why they want to be in the combat arms. Frankly, that's a secondary consideration. So my question for you, Congressman, is that, do you see this as a concern as well, and what can you do to help stop it?
Well, I see it as a concern from the comments that I've received from military, both male and female. I met and traveled with female military officers, including most recently a a Marine C-130 pilot who unequivocally said, we ought to be, and she says, I can, we ought to be judged the same as any man doing the same job. It ought to fit the job. What we're training to do, what we want to do. And if we want combat, we ought to be able to do the same things men do. And so based upon what they're telling me, and I would guess the majority of the females out in my district would concur with that. We want the opportunity, we want the equal opportunity, but we're willing to take on the same tasks and prove that we can do it.
We have a question over here in the corner. Yes, sir.
Everything I've heard here so far relates to what I want to discuss with you. And bear with me a moment to get the thoughts across to you, because I have been in Detroit, I have been to Allen Park and Pontiac and other places, and I have seen or been talking to the residents. Everything revolves around economic development. Development is the name for peace, always has been. When you have cooperation among nations and societies, things develop, people advance. Right now, the main enemy of this country is Wall Street and their owners and controllers. It goes all the way up to the Anglo-Dutch financial empire, aka the British Empire, who dominates the world's financial scene. Right now, we have, as federal law, we have what's called the Dodd-Frank bill. And there's supposed to be the Volcker rule, which has Carl Levin personally told us back in March that the Volcker rule does not compare with Glass-Steagall. It is that weak. The staffer told us that the ruling in the Volcker rule has yet to be written. There are over 800 pages of the Dodd-Frank bill, and to scramble to complete it, they're going to be adding somewhere around 30,000 pages. This is totally ridiculous. When it comes to Brown-Vitter, even Senator Vitter is backing off because he realizes nothing will separate the speculation from commercial banking like the Glass-Steagall Act, which